Marcus had always trusted his instincts. 20 years as a park ranger in the Cascade Mountains had taught him to read the forest like others read books. Every broken branch, every disturbed stone, every unusual silence held meaning. But the tracks he found that morning defied everything he knew. The prints were massive, nearly twice the size of a grizzly's paw, but with elongated claws that had gouged deep furrows in the hard-packed earth. They led from the tree line down to Silver Lake, where 3 campers had vanished without a trace 2 days prior. Could be a hoax, Sheriff Davidson had suggested when Marcus radioed in. You know how these cryptid enthusiasts get. But Marcus knew better. The torn fabric caught on the pine branches 20 feet up wasn't placed there by pranksters. Neither was the cloying, sulphurous smell that seemed to follow the trail, or the way every bird and insect had gone silent in a quarter-mile radius around the lake. He shouldered his rifle and followed the tracks deeper into the wilderness. The creature's path wound through dense undergrowth, across rocky outcroppings, and along game trails that seemed too narrow for something of its apparent size. As the afternoon wore on, Marcus noticed something disturbing. The tracks were getting fresher. The edges were sharper, the displaced soil darker. Whatever had made them was moving in a wide circle, and based on the GPS coordinates he'd been marking. That circle was tightening around the ranger station, where his wife Emma waited for his evening radio check-in. By sunset, Marcus had found the first body. Sarah Chun, one of the missing campers, hung suspended in the canopy 30 feet above the ground. Her body was desiccated, like something had drained every drop of moisture from her tissues. Her face was frozen in a silent scream, eyes wide with a terror so profound that Marcus had to look away. The radio crackled to life on his belt. "Marcus? You there?" Emma's voice carried worry despite her attempt to sound casual. "I'm here," he whispered, keying the mic while scanning the darkening forest around him. "Listen carefully. Lock all the doors and windows at the station. Don't go outside, no matter what you hear. I'm coming back, but if I'm not there by midnight, drive to town and don't stop." "Marcus, what's—" A sound cut through the forest that made his blood freeze. It was like nothing in nature, a wet, rasping call that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Birds erupted from trees 100 yards away. Something large moved through the canopy above, causing branches to sway and crack. Marcus ran. He crashed through undergrowth, leaped over fallen logs, and splashed across streams without breaking stride. Behind him, the forest erupted with sounds of pursuit trees splintering, rocks tumbling, and that terrible wet breathing getting closer. The ranger station's lights appeared through the trees just as something whistled past his ear. He dove through the front door and slammed. It shut, throwing the deadbolt and grabbing his shotgun from the rack. "What's out there?" Emma stood in the hallway, her face pale. "I don't know," Marcus gasped, checking the magazine. "But it's fast, it's smart, and it's hungry." The power went out. In the darkness, they heard it circling the building massive. Footsteps on the wooden porch, claws scraping against siding, testing windows and doors with deliberate intelligence. The sulfur smell seeped through the walls. "The emergency radio," Emma whispered. "In the basement." They crept downstairs, Marcus leading with the shotgun. The basement was stone and concrete, windowless and secure. Emma fired up the emergency transmitter while Marcus barricaded the door. "Mayday, Mayday. This is Cascade Range Station 7. We have a code black situation." "Repeat, code black?" "Multiple casualties, unknown hostile in the area. Need immediate evacuation and—" The lights came back on. Every light in the building blazed to life simultaneously, far brighter than normal. Through the basement's single ventilation grate, they could see something massive blocking the exterior light. Then they heard Emma's voice coming from upstairs. Marcus? Marcus, where are you? I found something you need to see." Emma stood frozen beside him in the basement, her hand still on the radio mic. They stared at each other in horror as her voice called again from above, perfectly mimicking her tone and inflection. It learns, Marcus realized. It watches and learns and mimics. Heavy footsteps moved across the floor overhead, pacing back and forth. Waiting, Marcus made a decision. He handed Emma the shotgun and grabbed an emergency flare from the supplies. "When I give the signal, call for extraction. Tell them to bring fire lots of it. This thing doesn't like light. Where are you going?" "To finish what I started." He climbed the stairs and opened the basement door. The main floor was empty, but claw marks gouged deep furrows in the wooden walls. The front door hung open, creaking in the mountain wind. Marcus stepped onto the porch and ignited the flare. Red light blazed across the clearing, and from the forest came an answering shriek of rage and pain. Trees crashed as something massive retreated into the deeper woods. But Marcus knew it would be back. Creatures like this didn't give up. They adapted, evolved, learned new ways to hunt. He thought of Sarah Chun hanging in the trees, of the other missing campers they'd never found, of all the bear attacks and hiking accidents over the years that might have been something else entirely. The flare sputtered and died. In the returning darkness, Marcus heard Emma's voice drifting from the forest, calling his name with perfect, loving familiarity. He gripped his rifle tighter and waited for dawn. When morning came, Marcus found claw marks gouged deep into the stations. Walls and Emma's voice still drifting from the forest, calling his name with perfect familiarity. But the real Emma stood beside him, safe and whole. They evacuated that day. The creature had learned too much, grown too bold. As the helicopter lifted them away from the mountains, Marcus watched the forest shrink below and wondered how many other rangers would face what he had faced. How many more would hear the voices of their loved ones calling from the dark? The official report listed the missing campers as victims of bear attacks. The ranger station was marked for demolition after structural damage from a gas leak explosion. The case was closed, but Marcus kept the emergency radio. Sometimes, late at night in their new home far from the mountains, it would crackle to life. Static and white noise mostly, but occasionally something else, a wet-spring call that made his blood freeze or worse. Emma's voice whispering secrets she'd never told him. The creature was still out there, still learning, still hunting. And somewhere in the deep places of the world, other voices were beginning to call from the darkness. Perfect imitations of people who would never come home.